Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. In case you missed it, yesterday around lunchtime, I put out a bonus episode celebrating the life of Richard Lewis. In the second half, there's just some really great stuff with Lewis and Don Rickles from a 1993 article in the LA Times. So check that out if you missed that. Big day today. Adam Sandler's Spaceman is out. Cannot wait. But first, let's talk some comedy. The South... Ooh, did you hear the subconscious there? I said, first, let's talk some comedy. Ooh, what does John's brain think about Adam Sandler? I'm sorry, I'm leaving that in. South by Southwest Comedy Festival. I'm still laughing at that. The 2024 South by Southwest Comedy Festival lineup has been announced. The comedy celebration is next week, March 8th through the 12th. They didn't put out some proper copy. There's just this big, long list of comedians, so let me skim it, and I'll just yell out some random names here in alphabetical order by their first letter of the first name. Beth Stelling, Brian Simpson, Conan O'Brien, you've heard of him, Doug Benson, Dulce Sloan, Hannah Einbender, James Adomian, Leguizamo, Lily Singh, Matt Besser, Natalie Palamides, who's fantastic, Nick Kroll, Nick Thune, Paul Scheer, Punky Johnson, Rich Voss, Robert Smigel, Sam B. Why is Rich Voss at South by? Yeah. Yamanika Saunders, plus surprise guests and more. Some of the Comedy Festival special programs include the origins of whatever you call what we did with Conan O'Brien, Robert Smigel. That's fun. Street Meat, a comedic celebration of food trucks, grease pits, and sandwich shops. The unfinished Orson Welles Roast of Hollywood. That features James Adomian. Orson Welles, played by Adomian, is joined by his famous friends and enemies to survey the state of film, celebrity, and South by. That sounds amazing. Here's some interesting copy. South by Southwest Comedy is honoring longtime collaborations, as well as welcoming new presenters to this year's festival. New York City institution Gotham Comedy Club, timeout, great club. Chris Mazzilli, who runs the place, awesome guy. They're celebrating their 10th season at South by bringing to the stage some of New York's funniest. Now, this is where I found the copy interesting. Over the years, Gotham has showcased comedy greats, among them Bill Burr, sure, Sinbad, Amy Schumer, Jim Brewer makes this list, and I'm friends with Jim, and Nate Bargatze. 10 years to South by, we're going to name 5 comics, and Jim makes the list? I mean, I'm surprised even Nate makes the list. Nate is still on the rise. I'm not ready to put him in the Hall of Fame yet. UCB and Matt Besser are back with a slate of shows, including Ask Katt, which is always great. Besser will also present AI Johnny Cash and AI Friends Hootenanny, a unique musical performance of artificial intelligences. AI Johnny Cash, as played by Matt Besser, hosts an evening of AI celebrities performing like you never thought was possible. 2 comedian contestants face off in Samantha Bee Presents Wits End, hosted by Quizmaster Adam Kessner. Comedians, with the help of former Jeopardy contestants, compete in the live game show where being funny is almost more important than getting the answers right. Doug Benson, Doug Loves Movies. Joe DeRosa's doing the sandwich thing I talked about. Conan O'Brien and Nick Kroll will discuss Conan's new travel series in the featured session Conan O'Brien Must Go. Been talking about that one for quite a while, Conan. When's it coming out? We'll deep dive on that next week because the big story today, Adam Sandler's Spaceman is out. I've got a night of TV planned. I'm going to watch Spaceman and then I'm going to watch David Cross on YouTube. That is the plan for tonight, my friends. Sandler was on Conan's podcast and talked about Taylor Swift. Now, what's surprising to me is on Thursday, as I put the show together, there were a million articles about Sandler talking about Taylor Swift, which is weird to me because the podcast came out on Monday and I hadn't seen a thing about this in 3 days. I didn't even realize Sandler was on Conan. Believe me, I would have talked about it. I've pulled the transcript for it, and if I get a minute, I'm going to go through and talk more about that interview. Candidly, I was running out the door Wednesday night heading to 80s Trivia Night. Oh my God, we finished 13th. I'm so embarrassed. I'm like Mr. 1980s. 13th? I can't blame my teammates. I just didn't know the answers. I'm very embarrassed by this. I did laugh, though. The trivia guy, he showed up in a Mets satin jacket, and I almost pulled out my Mets satin jacket to go with an 80s theme. I also considered pulling out my 1983 Tom Seaver jersey, but it was cold, so I didn't do either of those. Anyway, so I was running out the door, and then Richard Lewis passed away, so I had to cram out a quick bonus episode 2 days ago. And then yesterday, putting together the Richard Lewis tribute episode ate up most of the mornings. So when I get a minute, I'll go through the Conan transcript. And as I've talked about before, I like to listen to the episodes before I go through the transcript so I know what I'm looking for, but I'm just going to need some time. Anyway, Adam Sandler was on Conan's podcast, and Sandler said, Taylor Swift, because what she means to my kids, I get a little jumpy. Just because I don't want to blow it for my kids. So I'm a little like, Taylor, like I talk a little loud or something. I don't stay as cool as I can. Sandler said he also understands the comparisons between the Beatles and Taylor Swift. He says, people talk about the Beatles of it and all. I mean, so many smash hits. There's not a word my kids don't know. I know them too, by the way, but they know them inside and out. But it's just, remember the Beatles, every song on the record, that's Taylor Swift too. There's not a song you skip. You go, that one's pretty damn cool. Adam Sandler was at the premiere of Spaceman, and he was asked if he went to space for real life, what kind of junk food would he take with him? That's a weird question to randomly ask Adam Sandler. Sandler said, oh, that's good. I guess now a Marathon bar. You ever have one of those? They don't make them anymore. Maybe they only make a few. He was asked if there's a secret factory making them for Sandler. I feel like something's up here, don't you? This is a weird question to ask. And Sandler said, no, I don't. Well, maybe I do. I'm Sandler, for God's sake. I can get a Marathon bar, all right. The Daily Meal reminds us Marathon bars were discontinued in 1981. Marathon was a combination of chocolate and caramel in a braided-like bar. The Daily Meal also points out that Cadbury's Curly Whirly bars are quite similar, but are scarcely available in the U.S. Something's up there. Been doing this a long time. Something's up. At that same premiere, Sandler told The Hollywood Reporter how the director kept saying, I want to see none of Adam Sandler in there. I like this director. I agree. I want to see none of Adam Sandler in this either. And Adam saying, I understand. I hear that in my house too. I want to see none of Adam Sandler. Hey, Adam Sandler and I agree. Sandler said, I did my best to prepare for the role. They did a call with the astronauts at the International Space Station. Sandler said, they told us so many cool stories. We got to watch them float around. I was like, oh, I got to look like that. They told me about life up there and what their days are like and how to pass the time and what it's like when they're missing home and how heartbreaking it is. Sandler added he tried not to watch too many other space films because he didn't want to rip off anybody. All right, so is Spaceman any good? Screen Rant seems to say, yeah. The New York Times, not so sure. Screen Rant reminds us in 2020 when promoting Uncut Gems, which, as listeners know, is the best Adam Sandler film, and that's not even me being sarcastic. That's a solid movie and Sandler's best performance. At that time, Sandler joked with Howard Stern that if he were snubbed for a Best Actor nomination at the Academy Awards, he'd come back and do more Netflix movies that were purposely bad. Maybe he actually went through with that threat. That explains all the stuff that's come out. He's deliberately making horrible movies. Now it makes sense. Screen Rant writes, it's no secret that Sandler is very adept at comedy. And while Spaceman is not meant to be a laugh-out-loud romp, there's a subtle comedic undertone bolstered by the absurdity that Sandler effectively plays into. There's a lot for him to tackle, and much of his performance feels unsupportive. The narrative ideas and themes are obvious, but there's a lack of consistency and true depth. Spaceman's only draw is Sandler. The movie remains adrift for too long, showcasing its technical achievement, but neglecting to solidify what the film is about. The character's despair, loneliness, and existential crisis. The New York Times, buckle up, the paper of record, the thing people actually read. The New York Times wrote, Spaceman Review, what happened here? No, that's not me being sarcastic. That's the Times. What happened here? Adam Sandler and Carey Mulligan star in a baffling Netflix misfire about a man in, space. Whew. Reading from the Times. When was the last time you looked at the exquisite list of synonyms for the word baffled? They may be among the best in the English language. Puzzled, nonplussed, discombobulated, flummoxed, stumped, fogged, wildered, buffaloed. They're delicious, delightful, full of consonants, evocative of a very particular feeling. You're presented with something that seems as though it should be clear, but you can't make it make sense. The occasion for my bout of word nerdery is the Adam Sandler movie Spaceman, and for that I thank the film. It's not a particularly confusing movie on its own, in part because we've seen its likes before. Spaceman, alone in the inky blackness, goes a little nuts, and also gains clarity on his life back on Earth. What's flummoxing about Spaceman isn't what it is, but why it is. I love this. Some bad movies were never going to be good. Other bad movies never even tried. But But Spaceman is that exquisite, rare third thing, an awful movie, a very bad movie indeed, whose lousiness was almost certainly not apparent while it was in production. Perhaps this sounds fun bad to you. It's not fun bad. It's maudlin bad, belabored bad, and also pretty boring bad. Can I jump in here? Did we not know that this movie with Adam Sandler talking to a CGI alien that was really, no way it was going to be good? Rated R for some scary space stuff, language, and a spoiler. Come on, New York Times. Running time, 1 hour, 47 minutes on your Netflix. So after I watch that, I'm going to shake that off on my quest to find a comedy special I actually like. David Cross, I'm counting on you. He spoke to Consequence of Sound about his new special, Worst Daddy in the World. Like many specials, Worst Daddy in the World was edited together from 2 different performances recorded on the same night in Chicago. Consequence writes, unlike most stand-up specials where the editing ideally creates the illusion it's one performance, there are multiple points where the artifice is abandoned, which Cross says was not a calculated approach. He says, that just appeals to me. I don't like anything too slick. This sticks out, minor spoilers here, as Cross invites, I'm slowing down in case you don't want a David Cross spoiler, as Cross invites audience members up to the stage to perform a scripted scene with him, and the editing flows between the 2 different versions. Cross says, if nothing else, it shows you I did this every night, every show, so I like that, and it allowed me, once I established it, to take the more interesting takes from each person. So you're still doing the script as is, but I also definitely wanted to include the whole thing, where the guy didn't understand how to read that one line. I thought it was funny, so it's the best of both worlds, really. Cross says bringing audience members on stage is a fun, sketchy, theatrical kind of element. You never know how it's going to go. Some people I had to stop and ask them to leave because they were either too drunk or too obnoxious or they were trying to punch it up. Some people are too nervous, even though they volunteered. He was asked to rate the 2 audience members featured in the special. Cross said, I thought the lady did a good job. I'd give her a 7.7. I think the gentleman was a little less in tune with it. I'd give him a 5.8. As I put together the show, I was on Twitter, because that's what we call it. And I saw Dan Soder tweeted, on the road, new special, this Friday 3/1 on my YouTube, 10 a.m. EST. Please subscribe. Here's a clip.
In 1997, the United States enacted the deadbeat dad law, which meant if you didn't pay child support, you were going to jail. My dad died in 1997.
On that same Twitter search, Joe List said, just released some crowd work on YouTube. Here it is.
Oh, something else funny just happened. Oh, I wanted to make Matt's joke about people saying you gotta have a kid. He had that joke before I had a baby. I wanted, because I didn't want you guys to be like, oh, they're talking about Joe. Babies bring no joy, no fulfillment. Did you guys forget? That was like 1 minute ago.
Also out today, Angela Johnson Reyes has a new comedy album called Technically Not Stalking. That's via 800-Pound Gorilla. Ashley Ray has a new comedy album called Ice Cream Money. That's via Blonde Medicine. Adam Newman has announced a 5th stand-up comedy special called Jew versus the Volcano. That'll be on YouTube March 22nd. This one sounds interesting. It's structured loosely into 3 acts. We're promised music, magic, horses, butt stuff, and more. The first act offers a classic stand-up check-in about where he's at now, recently married, traveled, barreling out of a pandemic. The second is the age-old tale about losing one's virginity, featuring an appearance by R.E.M's Mike Mills and a visit to the emergency room. The third and final act brings us to what Adam Newman has been planning all along, coming out as a guitar comedian, offering up catchy songs about everyone's least favorite dictator and ham. This will be free on YouTube, also available as a comedy album in both digital and double vinyl formats. And let's go to the political part of today's podcast, where I'm going to annoy everybody because we don't all agree on anything. From the Jerusalem Post, Michael Rappaport showed up on an Israeli current events-oriented comedy show. He did a sketch about how Hollywood stars are ignoring the plight of the hostages held by Hamas. Playing himself hosting the Oscars, he joked in the opening ceremony monologue that the 134 remaining hostages has something in common with the Tinseltown royalty attending the show. Neither had eaten in 4 months. His joke, next year the hostage diet will be bigger than Ozempic. Another joke, Hamas makes Harvey Weinstein look like Peter Pan. He also made fun of several Jewish actors for their silence. He named the actors. I'm not familiar what they did or not. My hesitation here is he called out someone who I've already mentioned in this podcast, but this article says that person actually did sign a petition in support of Israel, so I don't want to be unfair to the people named there. You can find that in the Jerusalem Post if you'd like more information. The Daily Dot says thanks to a resurfaced screenshot, Twitter, because that's what we call it, is having a field day with the fact that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. once congratulated a gay comedian on being ungayed. The comedian in question, Tim Dillon, who is gay, posted a photo of himself and writer Annika Chayan on Instagram and Twitter and said the pair had just gotten married. Dillon joked homosexuality was a phase. Kennedy responded, saying that Anna was a beautiful angel. Easy to see how she ungayed you. It is unclear if RFK Jr. understood the joke. Former President Donald Trump recently told a town hall that now is not the time for him to be a comedian. He told an audience in South Carolina, "I really don't want to smile. I want to smile when we complete the task and make America great again." Fox News shared the clip. Laura Ingraham said, "You're extremely funny. I mean, you have a fantastic sense of humor." And I was curious, is Trump a good comedian? So I asked the chatbot to write a Trump joke, and I thought it did a good job. I'd like to hear Don say this one. I don't have a Trump impression for you. I don't even have a half-assed Trump impression for you, but the joke would go like this. You ever notice how airline food is like a box of chocolates? You never know what you're going to get, but it's always disappointing. I mean, seriously, if I wanted something frozen and tasteless, I'd gone to a rally in Iowa. Sorry, Iowa. That's your daily comedy news for today. If you're new, push that follow button on the Apple Podcasts app there and listen every day. I mean, the last couple of days you got 2 episodes a day, but that's only in case of breaking news. Did you check out Monsters, Sharks, and Dinosaurs yet? That's the new podcast we're pushing. Come on, do me a favor. Open up Apple Podcasts, find Monsters, Sharks, and Dinosaurs. Hit the follow button. Download the episode. Play the episode. I don't even care if you listen. Walk your dog while your phone is playing in your kitchen. I want to boost this thing on the charts. Get this thing rolling. Appreciate your help. See you tomorrow.